Relevance is supposed to fade. That's the rule everyone accepts, especially in pop music. Trends move fast, audiences get bored, and yesterday's icon quietly becomes today's nostalgia. But Katy Perry never followed that rule, and the reason isn't luck, viral moments, or chasing what's popular. It's something much deeper, more calculated, and far more uncomfortable than most people realize. Her relevance didn't survive by standing still. It survived by being willing to disappear, break, rebuild, and return in completely new forms. And the real question is not how many times she reinvented herself, but why she knew exactly when to do it. Have you ever noticed how some artists fade the moment they stop evolving, while others seem to reappear stronger every time you think their moment has passed? Katy Perry's career has always operated in cycles, not straight lines. She never treated success as a permanent state. From the beginning, she understood something many artists learn too late. Relevance is not about staying visible, it's about staying adaptable. Early on, her playful, exaggerated pop persona wasn't just an aesthetic choice, it was a deliberate entry point. Colorful, bold, almost cartoonish, it made her instantly recognizable in an industry overflowing with sameness. But what made this phase powerful wasn't how loud it was how temporary it was meant to be. That version of Katy Perry was never designed to last forever. It was designed to open the door. Then came the moment most careers break, the shift. The phase where the audience no longer reacts the same way, where repetition stops working, where applause gets quieter. Many artists panic here. They double down on what once worked. They cling to familiarity. Katy did the opposite. She allowed discomfort. She allowed criticism. She allowed people to say she had changed, lost direction, or become confusing. But what if confusion was the point? What if relevance doesn't come from clarity, but from the courage to reset before stagnation sets in? Each reinvention cycle followed the same internal logic. First, saturation. Then, withdrawal. Then, transformation. Then, reintroduction. This rhythm kept her from becoming predictable. When she stepped back from her hyper-polished pop image, it wasn't because it failed, but because it succeeded too well. Oversaturation is dangerous. When the audience thinks they fully understand you, curiosity dies. Katy sensed that moment and chose risk over comfort. Ask yourself honestly, how often do you cling to what works simply because it feels safe? What makes her reinventions effective is that they were never cosmetic alone. Hair color changes, visual shifts, and sonic experiments were surface-level indicators of deeper internal recalibration. Each phase reflected a psychological reset, a reassessment of identity, purpose, and emotional alignment. That's why even when her work divided audiences, it never felt hollow. It felt intentional. Even criticism kept her relevant, because relevance isn't always about praise. Sometimes it's about remaining part of the conversation. And she understood that silence, when used strategically, can be just as powerful as noise. There's another layer most people miss. Katy Perry never reinvented herself to chase trends. She reinvented herself to outrun them. Trends are reactive. Reinvention is proactive. While others waited to see what worked, she moved ahead of expectation, knowing that some phases would land imperfectly. But imperfection keeps an artist human. It keeps curiosity alive. Would you rather be perfectly forgettable or imperfectly unforgettable? Midway through her career, the emotional cost of constant transformation became visible. Reinvention isn't glamorous behind the scenes. It requires letting go of versions of yourself that once brought validation, money, and approval. It requires grieving old identities. Katy didn't hide this tension. She absorbed it. She allowed vulnerability to become part of the narrative, not as weakness but as evolution. This is where many artists lose control of their story. She reclaimed it by owning the transitions instead of apologizing for them. If this perspective resonates with you so far, take a moment to subscribe and share your thoughts in the comments. Do you believe reinvention is a necessity for relevance, or do you think consistency matters more? Your perspective shapes the conversation here. Another critical element of her longevity is timing. Reinvention too early looks unstable. Reinvention too late looks desperate. Katy mastered the timing window where familiarity starts turning into fatigue. That instinct is rare. It requires self-awareness strong enough to ignore short-term comfort in favor of long-term relevance. Most people wait for external signals. She listened inward. She trusted intuition over metrics. That's why even quieter phases still contributed to the larger arc of her career. Her ability to step into different roles beyond music also reinforced these cycles. Television, public personality shifts, motherhood, advocacy. Each added dimension diluted the risk of being defined by a single era. When one identity cooled, another gained depth. This diversification wasn't accidental. It was insulation. Relevance thrives when your value doesn't rely on one lane. Ask yourself, if one area of your life faded tomorrow, what else would still define you? What truly separates Katy Perry from many of her peers is that she never tried to freeze time. She allowed herself to age, emotionally and artistically. That choice alone breaks one of pop culture's unspoken rules. Youth is often treated as currency. Katy treated growth as currency. She leaned into change instead of resisting it. And audiences, even when divided, respect honesty. They sense when evolution is real versus manufactured. Each reinvention cycle also recalibrated her relationship with the audience. Early on, it was spectacle-driven. Later, it became more relational. Less about shock, more about connection. That shift mirrors the audience's own aging process. Fans who grew up with her weren't looking for the same thing forever. She adjusted without abandoning her core. That balance is fragile. Lose the core, and you lose identity. Ignore evolution, and you lose relevance. Perhaps the most underrated aspect of her reinvention strategy is restraint. She didn't over-explain. She didn't justify every change. She let the work speak, even when misunderstood. Over-explaining kills mystique. Katy allowed ambiguity. She let interpretation belong to the audience. In a culture addicted to constant explanation, restraint becomes power. And here's the uncomfortable truth most people avoid. Reinvention requires accepting that not every phase will be universally loved. Katy Perry accepted uneven reception as part of the process. That acceptance freed her creatively. She wasn't chasing approval. She was chasing alignment. When you stop needing everyone to like every version of you, growth accelerates. How much of your own potential is delayed by the fear of disappointing others? At the end of the day, Katy Perry's relevance isn't sustained by hits alone. It's sustained by her willingness to become unfamiliar to herself, again and again, to let old identities dissolve, to trust that something new will emerge. That courage is rare. That discipline is invisible. And that cycle is why her presence never truly disappears, even when she steps back. If this perspective gave you a new way to look at fame, identity, or your own evolution, make sure to subscribe and leave a comment sharing which reinvention cycle resonated with you the most. Conversations like this grow stronger when more voices join in.